Well, let's go. We've got Ricky Ponting here, affectionately known as Punter. So tell us about your reconnection with the club in terms of Ponting Wines. What's your been involvement there?
I never in my wildest dreams thought, growing up in Launceston, living in housing commission homes, wine was never something that was on the dinner table most nights, that's for sure. It was very much a beer and a barbecue sort of background that I grew up in. But as the older I've gotten, meeting my wife was probably where the whole wine journey started. She was a lot more into, the wine side of life than I was. That was sort of 20 years ago, so in the middle of my playing career, so I wasn't drinking much at that stage anyway. But here we are now, 4 years down the track. We've started our own business, which Rihanna and I are major shareholders in, and we've been lucky enough only in the last couple of weeks to strike up a sponsorship with a footy club.
Where to start for you in terms of Kangaroo supporter? Was it your old man or...?
It was my mum and my uncle, actually. My dad was a St Kilda supporter, so as you can imagine, over the years that sort of dropped off a little bit. But I've never really asked my mum why she was a Kangaroo supporter, but my uncle was a guy called Greg Campbell, who was, when I was young and impressionable, he was doing everything that I wanted to do. He was playing A grade for the Mowbray Cricket Club, he was playing state cricket for Tasmania, then got picked on an Ashes tour to England in ¡89. So you can imagine having someone in your family that was doing exactly what I wanted to do. I idolised everything he did. So, to the point where when he first got picked on that Ashes tour, he was away on a state trip. All of his Australian kit got sent to my grandmother's house, and I went into his bedroom when he wasn't there, unzipped the bag, found the baggy green in it.
Pinch it all?
I didn't take any of it, no, but I picked the baggy green up and I didn't put it on, but I had a bit of a feel of it, had a bit of a smell of it, and made sure I placed it back in his bag so he wouldn't know. But that's where the love of the footy club started. I was born in '74, so there were some good times at the footy club when I was sort of 4 or 5, 6 years of age as well. And a lot of the other great memories I have are obviously in the mid-90s when the couple of premierships came.
Yeah, we've seen the retirement or moving on of some real stalwarts of our footy club in Goldstein and Cunnington and Zeeble. You experienced something pretty similar with the retirement of Warney and JL and Haydos and these sorts of guys, and then had to reinvent yourselves as a cricket side. You were captain of the Australian side at that point in time. Yeah.
There were a couple of times where we had to reinvent ourselves as a team, and even for me as a player and as a leader, I had to reinvent myself a couple of times as well through that journey. Probably the most significant moment in my career as a leader was after the 2005 Ashes. We went to the Ashes as the best team in the world, almost an unbeatable team. We got to the UK and we had an English team there that were ready to take us on. They were really going to change the way that their style of play, get away from that old English style of play and almost try and play like an Australian team and take us on head first. And they beat us. I think they won 2-1. We had a lot of our players coming to the back end of their careers.
Is that the tour when Pigeon twisted his ankle on that?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And I won the toss and bowled first that day, which probably wasn't the smartest thing I ever did. But we hadn't lost in a long time. We'd been the most dominant team in world cricket for a long time, but it was evident that little things were starting to change around the group. And the biggest learning for me through that was that no matter how close you are or how much you trust a lot of your senior players or your teammates, at the moment as a leader that you start to feel or identify that something's not quite right, rather than sitting back and expecting them to fix it, you got to fix it yourself. And there was a few little things that happened around the team with the way that we trained and the way we prepared, and some of our players were staying out of the team hotel because they had their families there. Little things, little cracks were just starting to open up, and once we got put under pressure in the middle of an Ashes series, those cracks just grew a little bit wider and wider, and before we knew it, we couldn't win the Ashes. So I had to immediately then, as soon as I identified anything or heard anything from one player or noticed something around the group that I knew wasn't perfect, then I had to change it quickly. So we got back to Australia. We had a regrouping like this. We had all the 25 contracted players plus all the staff at Cricket Australia. We sat in the room and talked about what we needed to do to get back to the top, and that was from board level right the way down to the 25th contracted player, and we changed everything around. We went back to the real old school style of Australian cricket, the way that we trained and prepared and more importantly presented ourselves to the public as well. And so that was the part of that challenge. And the challenge that you were referring to was when those great players all left, and what did we do then to get back on track? So, and it wasn't planned that way. It wasn't planned for us to have 4 or 5 of our all-time greats leave at the one time. I think Warney actually just set off a chain reaction. McGrath thought it'd be a good idea, then Langer thought it'd be a good idea. I think Langer was actually just getting on the coattails of those two to retire at the same time, so he got a bit of a decent send-off as well at the SCG. But so all those great players went, and then we had South Africa in Australia that summer. We were still the number 1 ranked team in the world. They were number 2 ranked. We weren't used to losing test matches or test series in Australia. They beat us. So we had guys like Phil Hughes, Andrew McDonald, Marcus North, Ben Hilfenhaus, Peter Siddle, Mitchell Johnson, Brad Haddon. That was the younger group that came in. And they had to learn quickly. They were playing the best team. And it was up to me as then obviously the most senior player and the leader to make sure that they learnt what it meant to play for Australia, but also what you had to do to win games for Australia, because that's the important thing for me. It's not about playing. It's not about just turning up and going and competing. It's about finding a way to win every contest, basically.
Yeah.
And that's the way we look at it as cricketers. Every ball you bowl, every ball that you face is a contest that you have to win for your team. And the reason that I always trained as hard as I did was because I didn't want to. If anything happened in a game that I couldn't cope with, then I couldn't live with myself with my teammates if I dropped a catch or if I couldn't hit the stumps from side on, or if I nicked my first ball as a batsman. I couldn't live with myself knowing that I'd let my teammates down. So that was the reason that I trained and worked as hard as I did, and thankfully for most of the time it was all pretty good result-wise.
And as a young fella, you love both footy and cricket, and pretty talented football as a young bloke. When did it come that time where you had to make the choice, or you thought that cricket was you go rather than your footy?
No, I to this day still love probably playing footy more. I still have dreams now about pulling on a blue and white jumper and being out in the middle, but no one will handball or kick the ball to me, running around all over the place, but I can't get a touch. I'm sure you guys probably have not dreams about footy dreams like that. You might have a cricket dream or something that you can't live out in real life either. But no, as much as cricket is a team game, it's still a bit more of an individual game within a team, whereas I think footy is the opposite of that. I think footy is more of the all-in really team game, and I think that's why I probably gravitated to footy a bit more as a junior. I only played until I was like under 16s, and last game I played, I actually broke my elbow quite badly and had a steel pin in my elbow for 16 weeks, which meant that I missed the start of the cricket season the next year. That was where it really changed. It was, I went to the cricket academy. I'd been to the cricket academy as a 15-year-old, and then came back and played that season.
Is that in Adelaide with Marshall?
It was in Adelaide then. It's up in Brisbane now, but so even that, talk about little things and sacrifices that you make. I packed up a cricket bag and a little suitcase of clothes I just finished year 10, so I was 15, packed up and moved to Adelaide for 2 years to give cricket a crack. Didn't finish school, didn't finish year 11 and 12, which I probably wouldn't have done anyway, but that was the decision I made as a 15-year-old. Move away from your family, move away from home, give cricket a crack, and thankfully, it all happened really quickly. Rod Marsh was probably the biggest influence on my life, because as a 15-year-old, he gave me an opportunity. The other guys in my year were sort of 20, 21, and here's me as this little kid out of Launceston with only a kit bag and not much else, that was on the road trying to make it work. And that was one of the I think most defining little phases in my whole life.
I've got to ask you questions forever, but we'll get a couple from the floor. I think Laz had a question. Where is Laz sitting?
Who was the hardest test bowler that you faced?
It depended where we were, conditions-wise. Like, if I was never a great player of spin, growing up obviously in Australia, but as a junior, growing up on Astro wickets where the ball doesn't spin much, skids on, bounces a lot more. My first couple of tours to India were a nightmare. Like, it was so foreign to everything that we were ever taught. Even at the cricket academy with guys like Ian Chappell, who was a good player of spin, everything he taught us over there was about using your feet. You've got to run down the wicket to the spinners. You've got to get to it on the half volley or the full toss. Well, you try doing that in India when it's spinning this far. If you don't quite get it perfect, you're out. So everything we'd been taught, we had to go back and sort of try and reteach ourselves the right way to play. So Harbhajan Singh got me out for fun. I don't know, he got me out 14 or 15 times probably in Test cricket, but most of those in India, not very often in Australia, just because of the conditions. But Curtly Ambrose was a Akram, were the best fast bowlers that I ever faced. Akram, because he was, left arm 150 k's an hour, swung the new ball and old ball, would bowl enough bad balls where you could score off him, but you just knew around the corner he could bowl one that you couldn't do much about. Whereas Ambrose was the opposite. Ambrose was, we've all seen Glenn McGrath bowl. Ambrose was, 3 or 4 inches taller than him, probably 5 k's quicker than him, but landed the ball on a 20-cent piece every time. So you always felt a challenge to score against him. And if you're aggressively minded like I was as a batsman, if you're finding it hard to score, then that's when you're vulnerable. And he just built so much pressure. You never got to. I've still got a VHS, a video cassette of him bowling a spell to Justin Langer and I at the Wacker, which was just, so quick. Yeah. And the funny story I tell about that was that it was late in the day, and he come on with the second new ball, and Justin and I were both set at the time. We're best mates, we're like brothers. And Akhtar had this when he was bowling to top order batters that were in and set. Quite often he wouldn't run in and bowl his absolute quickest. He'd save it for when the new batsman came in or when the tail enders came in. Anyway, he got the new ball, and I went halfway down the wicket to JL and I said, I bet he dogs it. I bet he dogs it here with the new ball. He won't run. He'll save himself for later. Well, I don't know if Akhtar heard me or not, but the next hour and a half was the quickest spell of bowling that I've ever witnessed. And so I'm doing my best to try and hit hook shots and pull shots, and I couldn't lay bat on them. And every time I did hit one and drop it down, I'd take off for a single and I'd look up and Langer's at the other end going, no. I'm fine up here. You look after that end, I'll look after this end. So it was 2s and 4s only for the next hour and a half. Yeah.
Powell, you got one for us?
Who was the best sledger you played with?
I'm not sure if there's such a thing as a good sledger, because normally sledging only happens when the the batsman's getting the better of the bowler. So whatever comes out of the bowler's mouth is normally rubbish anyway. Certainly anything that came out of McGrath's mouth was always rubbish. Warney wasn't bad. Warney was good because he used to really play on the batter's minds. Warney quite often had his battle won before he even bowled a ball. Not even with what he said, but just the skill set that he had and how good he was. He was more often on top of players before the game even started. He might have even said something in the press leading into the game and McGrath was a genius at doing that as well. McGrath used to target the best batsman from the opposition team. We used to make him do the press conference 2 days out before the first test of every series, and he'd point out, I'll get Lara every time this, or I'll get Tendulkar 5 times. He'd just do it every series, so we like doing that with him. Peterson.
Question from 40. Where's 40? What do you got for us, lad?
Thanks, Tommy. You're a big fan. Pleasure to be here in the presence of greatness. My question was.
Keep going. Yeah, keep going.
My question was, what was your sort of most favourite or memorable innings you ever played?
I think I get asked that a lot, and I tend to go back to the first time I did something that I felt was special in the game, and it probably wasn't the best innings I ever played. But my first Test 100 was an Ashes 100 against England at Headingley in 1997. And until you have, and I'm sure you guys will feel the same, until you have that sort of breakout moment or breakout performance at the highest level, you're not ever sure if you can actually do it, if you're good enough to do it, as well as you might train and whatever people say about you, you've still got to get out there and show that you can do it. And once you've done it once, there's no reason why you can't do it a lot of times. So, that first 100 would be one of my favourite innings. Ended up being an innings in a winning game as well. But probably the one that I'm most proud of was a 100 I got in that 2005 Ashes that we lost. In Manchester, England had dominated us for the whole game. They declared, I think, with a session to go on day 4, on a really dry wicket that was spinning and was going to reverse swing, and we were chasing about 500. So the game, we couldn't win. And the teams that I played in hadn't found ourselves in situations like that very often, where we're hanging on for a win. We're always either a long way ahead in the game, or we're about to push the game forward and get a long way ahead in the game and then go on and win. So we had to bat for 4 sessions against a pretty good attack to hang on for a draw, or the Ashes was gone. And I batted for all but about 3 overs. I think I was the ninth wicket out for 156, but being 9 down meant that Glenn McGrath was coming in next with 3 overs to go. So I thought the game was done. So as well as I played right the way through, to get out when I did, coming off the field, it was like my emotions were everywhere. I thought, that's this game done, that's the series done, you know. And to put a bit of context to it, I was batting with Brett Lee, so I was taking 4 or 5 balls every over and then getting off strike and leaving Brett just to get through one so I could be on strike for the next over. And it was the last ball of an over. Steve Harmison was bowling it. He bowled it like a short, wide ball down the leg side. And because it was down here, I knew I couldn't let it go, otherwise Bingham would have got stuck at the other end. So I had to try and hit it to get a single and get up the other end. So I sort of tried to fend it down to fine leg, and it just flicked my glove, went through to the keeper. And Billy Bowden was the umpire, the Kiwi guy, who I got on really well with. And I think he was a bit intimidated by some of us, Aussie blokes. And I remember I felt it on the glove, and I thought, if I look Billy in the eye, there's no way he's going to give me out. So I flicked around, I stared straight at him like that. And he took forever, and you could see he's like... And then he finally gave me out. McGrath's going out to bat with about 3 or 4 overs to go against Harmison and Flintoff, so he's literally no chance. The game's over. Anyway, the ball's reverse swinging so much. I watched the first ball on the TV in the corner when I was getting my gear off, and it was a reverse swing in swinger that came in and missed off stump by about this much. So I get Stuart McGill, I said, get out in the ground now and tell McGrath to bat at least 2 yards out of his crease, because he's going to be bowling full and straight. They're going for an LB or bold. So if he gets down there, he's going to be either outside the line or the umpire's not going to be able to make a decision. So the message goes out. McGrath, I watch him, he goes, like almost paces it out 2 steps down and then stands out of his crease. Typical fast bowler. And then I'm sitting there watching it, bowls the ball, goes through to the keeper. The keeper takes it and throws it to short leap, and McGrath hasn't moved back in his crease. He's still out of his crease, so he could have got run out. It would have been game, like a la Johnny Bairstow. It would have been game over. So I grabbed McGill again and said, get out and ground again, and tell him when the ball goes past, he's got to get back into his crease. So him and Binger managed to get through. I don't know how, but they got through. We saved the game, and that was probably the proudest moment I've had. I think as a batter or batsman and a leader, to be able to stand up and get the job almost done, but in the toughest situation in an Ashes series was probably the best I've ever played.
Yeah, all the audience here are just compelled with what you got to say, and particularly, cricket's such a big part of the culture of Australian society, and we've all grown up watching it on the telly and watching you in particular. But also, you just got such a great passion for this footy club, but also for football yourself, because it was such a big part of your upbringing. Your sponsorship of our club. Thank you.
You can guarantee if I'm away or I'm at home, I'm not missing a minute of the... I've actually got Channel 7 actually, I don't know if I should say this or not, but they give me a direct link into their coverage when I'm away. So I just get on my iPad and there's a link that I click on and it just goes to the game, and I'm listening to the commentators behind the scenes. It's awesome. Absolutely. So I don't miss a minute. Love the footy club, love every single one of you guys in here, and wish you all the very best for the season. Hope it's a good one.
Can you put your hands together for a punter? Yeah.